So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session on emerging trends in food retail. There are two errors which the organizers have made. Normally, a moderator is supposed to be someone who moderates and has moderate views. So they've chosen the wrong guy because typically my views are not very moderate. But the bigger error is that the moderator normally is the senior most person in that industry or in that field of expertise. And unfortunately, they've chosen the junior most person to moderate this time. So it's going to be a session with a difference. We've got some stalwarts of the industry with us. And I think we are really looking forward to a very insightful session in terms of what are the new emerging realities in food and grocery retail. Now, I'd like to keep the format a little bit free-flowing. And fortunately, nobody has a PowerPoint presentation, so that helps. But more importantly, if there is any burning issue or question which strikes you during our discussion, you don't have to wait for the end. You can please ask your question whenever you feel the need. Just put up your hand and I'll try and catch it. So that your question sometimes might add an interesting twist to the discussion, and therefore the discussion can become more enriched. If you ask questions only at the end, then it becomes a little difficult to then, enrich the rest of the discussion. So let's keep that open-ended. And what I'll do is I'll ask the panelists to start by giving their view on what they think is the way forward, what are the emerging trends in food and grocery retail, and then we'll pick up a few threads and take it from there. Is that okay? Good? Okay, so let's start. Anyone would like to start? Okay.
The name's Ajay Gupta, Capital Foods. I have a brand called Ching, Secret and Smith & Jones. When it comes to modern retail, my business foundation has happened with modern retail. I believe all kinds of consumptions will happen through self-service stores. And this is so everyone sitting on my right is going to build the consumption story of India. As the consumer keeps walking into a modern retail store, we are going to keep discovering, she's going to keep discovering a lot of new products, which is going to set the trend of what is to happen. Hence, coming back to what are the trends to happen in modern retail, I believe that modern retail needs to discover and has begun to discover to a point the traditional foods of India in a modern form. For example, in a Star Bazaar and the Nilgiris, you can now find a sattu. In Star Bazaar, you can find a sattu, and you can find which is products that are typically bought in Kirana stores. They are now well packaged and presented to the new consumer. So that's where I see trends happening. Pick up traditional products and can we modernize it in terms of packaging to the new consumer.
Okay, from a trends perspective, I just want to call out 2 or 3 important things which I see from a consumer lens as well as from an industry lens. I think one is regulatory and 2 I see as consumer trends. The regulatory one relates to the FSSAI law or the new food law, which is all encompassing and so on. Like most things, I think the implementation of the law has been completely blotched up and nobody knows whether it's in or out and when it's going to be implemented. But I think it will have a deep impact on the industry, the consumers, the supply chains over a period of time. So once we get it right and once we implement it right, I think certainly for modern retail, this law is going to have a far-reaching impact, and we all need to understand and probably get ready for it. The other 2 trends from a consumer lens I want to call out is, one is, I think Indian consumers, especially urban Indian consumers, are experimenting more and more with foreign flavors, foods, and they can see them through even outlets like McDonald's, Pizza Hut, and KFC, and so on and so forth. So, for instance, just a food like pizza, for instance. While many of us in Delhi and Mumbai would be used to a pizza, but if you go to smaller towns now, pizza is becoming a part of a weekly sort of a treat, especially for younger India. And how can modern retail play a role in blending those foreign sort of flavors and foods and bring them to consumers in a convenient and also inexpensive way? So I think that's one trend I see clearly. And Mr. Gupta and I were talking at our break, and even Chinese flavors into Indian foods and those kind of things. The second thing is on the fresh side. And I'm not talking necessarily, produce, which is fruits and vegetables, but I'm talking from the point of view of, dairy and chilled and those kind of products. People essentially bought dairy in India from traditional trade, as in from a halwai shop or from a milkman who came and delivered milk, and, khoya from somebody who specialized in that kind of product. I see an emerging trend where these kind of traditional dairy products are now being bought at modern trade, and there are opportunities to actually innovate in such through good chilled and frozen supply chains. Yogurt, for instance. 10 years ago, one would have not thought that the traditional low Indian yogurt would be actually packaged and sold by large multinationals in India. But almost, there have been 3 or 4 big launches of traditional natural yogurt in India, many of them very successful. So that I see clearly as a trend, and I think modern retail is playing a significant role in helping fuel that trend as producers come up with those innovative products.
To add on, I think one very important part is India is by itself a very diverse culture. You have so we are in South. I represent Nilgiris. We have predominantly in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. Several years back, finding a 5 kg atta in a market like Chennai would be conceived as impossible. But today you find many options of brands coming in. You have today migration of people coming in from various parts of the country, especially being IT hubs, and therefore the demand for food products has moved. The awareness of people is much higher in terms of, so there are people asking for mishi doi, they're asking for raitas, so the culture, so there's obviously far better understanding of Indian food. There's a huge demand in South for Bengali cuisine, for Gujarati cuisine, so that's one big trend that's happening. As he rightly said, I think imported range is one area which is people are loving to experiment. I think people are willing to pay a premium, go and try new products, new colors. There's a lot of action happening there, a lot of impulse purchases happening in that particular category. So people are willing to experiment. That's one very important trend. One thing which all have been talking about is health and wellness. I think health and wellness is a category which is clearly an area where people are much more conscious today, and they are seriously trying to understand the products. They are engaging with the brands. They are trying to read the contents. The consumer today is far more knowledgeable than what he was before. A consumer came to me and asked me, I was in a store and he asked me a particular brand was priced at $10 for a ragi biscuit, and for the same grammage a different brand was $30. He said, why is it different? I myself didn't know the difference. Then we went into the ingredients and he found that the brand with the high price point had more ragi in it and less of maida. So clearly today consumers are asking questions. Health and wellness is a very important part in the category. As I rightly said, fresh continues to be an important parameter. Indian consumer today is still looking at freshness. They decide in the afternoon what's going to be made for the dinner, and therefore paneer has to be available in the nearby shop. So these are clearly trends. So fresh is one, health and wellness, and the consumer's willingness to pay a premium for trying out new brands. That's one.
Jamshed, I'm going to put it in 5 points. One of the problems in discussing food is since everybody eats food, everybody thinks they are an expert in food, right? So everybody has an opinion. That's why we have a minister of food processing, but we don't have a minister of IT, and thank God for that. And therefore, we are blessed in some ways. Okay, let me put what I have to say in 4 or 5 points. First is that discovery in food can't happen at the bottom of the pyramid. Ajay, whatever you're doing, this word you use all the time, I've known you for so long, is discovery of food, and that's what you're doing with your brands. Most of the spendable money, expendable money, is with the top 10% of the population. So don't look for creating foods at the bottom of the pyramid. Food means different things to different people. People who are at the bottom of the pyramid or the middle class and upper class, food has different connotations for them. It's not the same thing, okay? That's the first point. So disposable money, you got to look for discovery of food with the population where the money is and where they're prepared to spend. And the first spend or experimentation happens with those people who are prepared to spend that money on food. Second point is that the ethnicity, the community consumption in India is extremely strong. Whatever happens, even if you have a young teenager at home, they may eat fast food, but finally it's either dosa, chapati, dal curry, paneer curry. They enjoy that heartily. Even in the US, people, Indians who live there, make Indian cuisine. So the strength that comes out of the Indian ethnicity is extremely strong, and therefore to be able to dislodge it with something else is really a huge challenge. In India, QSR is entertainment. It is not staple food. In the US, McDonald's is part of the food coupon. That's how the government actually gives dole out to actually go and buy at 99 cents. You can have a Mac burger, fries and Coke. But we go to QSR only for entertainment. Therefore, you must have seen in economics time today, the QSRs are struggling. They are not growing. They are not growing for the last 1 year, and they are straddled with the problem of sale. The next point I want to make is very significant. I don't think food exists in India the way food is understood globally. There are 4 or 5 categories which dominate food in the Western world or even in the Eastern world. What are those categories? First is dairy. Because we get milk delivered at our doorstep for less than 500 rupees a month, we don't buy milk from supermarkets, which is liquid milk. And therefore the dairy category has not developed at all. The retailers who run retail stores are ill-equipped with dairy equipment. They have not done category management, they have not grown that category, so therefore they are not forcing the manufacturers to give them an enabling environment to put dairy. So dairy is almost nothing in organized trade or even in general trade. Consumers struggle to buy dairy. You want to buy yogurt. Where do you go and buy yogurt in Bombay City? Please tell me. There may be 1 or 2 places where you go and buy, but you go to a Western or Eastern supermarket, you'll find 20, 40, 50 kinds of flavors as far as yogurt is concerned. The consuming population is ready to consume, but the retailer is not doing enough, and I think the manufacturer is not doing enough in dairy. The second category which is completely missing is meat. Delicatessen meat is not sold in the supermarkets for maybe one reason or the other, but one of the reasons maybe majority of owners of retail in this country are either Marwadis or Gujaratis, so they don't want to do meat, except for Tata, Jamshed, the others are against their ethics of actually doing meat. So they are not doing meat. So the consumer has to go to the wet market and buy meat in the most unhygienic and unsafe conditions, that there is no other way of buying fish and meat. So meat is completely missing. And the fourth category is bakery. We still have the dry modern bread. Do you have succulent soft bakery? Do you get a range of 100 products out of a bakery store? You have 1 or 2 standalones which do extremely well in bakery. Other than that, there is no bakery. So how do you define food in this country when these 5 categories don't even exist? And of course, I'm not mentioning the other category doesn't exist, which is fruit and vegetable. Which retailer does fantastic fruit and vegetable? There's only one chain in my view in the whole of India, and anyone who's in fruit and vegetable must go and see it, which is Kovai Paramudin Nilayam in Chennai. He's got a turnover of over I think 200, 300 crores doing exclusively fruit and vegetable, selling fruit and vegetable in a 2,500 square feet store and selling 1 crore per store. Only fruit and vegetable. And they make a net margin or more profitable than any other organized trade in this country. But the other retailers don't do it. You allocate some 459 square feet to put some 25 SKUs and struggle with it, and the accountant will ask you what is happening to your dump, and you ask 200 questions to the category manager who can't answer because the entire supply chain is not organized. So the missing categories, dairy, meat, delicatessen, bakery and fruit and vegetable don't almost exist in this country. So what food are we talking about? The last point I want to make is Food is center of plate. When you sit down for lunch or dinner, the center of plate is totally missing. There is no processed food in center of plate. Ajay Gupta is playing in the periphery of the plate. Pickles, jam. Do we have frozen parathas? Do we have frozen rice? I remember I went to one of the Walmart stores in the US and I asked the store manager, do you sell rice? They said yes, and they took some 1 hour to find it. There's 200-gram packs of rice, but they had some 100 biryanis, which was frozen. So center of plate is completely missing in processed food. Nobody has the courage to go and grab that center of plate and say, here are brands that retailers can sell. Now I'll get you HMR, I'll substitute your cooking with something. I believe many of the stores in this country and the consumer is ready, and it's up to the retailer and the manufacturer to actually put that on the table.
Excellent. I think we've got a diversity of views, which I will take on. But at this stage, does anyone have any burning question which you would like to ask? Yes, ma'am. Can someone give you the mic or should I don't think they're geared up for this mid-session question answer.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Naveta and I'm from Chroma. But I had been in retail for past decade and I have been studying. Oh, you can hear me? Yeah. I think Nilgiri's or even Star Bazaar has done a fantastic job when it comes to doing the processing unit and giving the spices range or even pulses in private label. So when you're talking about buying milk or dairy products from any of the modern retail, can't retailers look at a processing unit which will cater to all these needs, where a hygiene option can be given to the consumer? Can't retailers look at a processing unit for milk? I mean, it's just a question. Is it possible?
Are you asking why the retailer doesn't set up a processing unit for milk? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
See, first of all, milk is very difficult in collection and distribution. I don't think there is any retailer in this country who has a scale to put up anything back in. They've been struggling to put up their own warehouses. So I'm not sure that's a great option.
Okay, possibly we are the few retailers who do it. So we have our own manufacturing for dairy, and we also have for the bakery. So the two categories which Radha spoke about. Clearly, the organization is 100 years old. So obviously it started as a dairy processing. Retail happened much later. So we have a different stage of evolution vis-a-vis other players. But yes, clearly today when I have 5 types of yogurts, 3 types of flavored yogurts, 4 types of frozen